really quick, so I'm just gonna go to messenger.com and get a full screen for our chat, and I'll send the URL to the Twitch stream, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Alright. Okay. And obviously there is going to be some lag between like our conversation and the stream, so you might want to mute the sound on the stream because otherwise you're going to hear me talking twice, and that might be a bit distracting. I'm going to try to get things organized here. Oh, hold on. So you broke up there a bit, so I'm going to keep one of my monitors open for just the chat. And we might want to stick to so we might want to stick to the chat window for conversation. Just because, oh, yeah, because okay, got ya. So I think you want to just keep it to the text chat, so that will be easier on bandwidth if we're just doing the live stream, and we can close this call. Like, yeah, because it'll be easier on your internet if we're not doing voice chat. And how's your typing speed? Are you decent with typing? Okay, yeah. So just we'll have the conversation in the chat. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna close this call, and I have the chat window open on my computer, so you can type me questions and things there. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna just make sure that okay, so that's recording. Looks like my stream looks all right. Yep, okay. So, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a new folder for this project. So I'm gonna just go into where I keep projects. I actually keep a lot of my projects on a portable thumb drive, and I don't know, just makes it easier for me. So I have a folder for my Git Heroku projects, and I believe the last time I did this, it was like Njs Practice. Yeah, so I have a folder. Okay, so I have the first project I recorded, last week, and I'm just gonna number them sequentially. And sometimes the best way to get good at things is just to do them multiple times, because that way you will kind of like get it into your memory better. Sometimes people are afraid to do that because you know, you work really hard on something and you don't want to start over, but think of it like a calligraphy artist, right? They do a lot of paintings and they try to do it really fast, and you know, every once in a while, you know, the king asks the calligraphy artist for a masterpiece and they just whip one out really quick. The king's all like, what the hell? If you could do it that fast, why did it take you so long to get there? And turns out, well, you know, it takes a lot of practice to be able to whip something out that's awesome really quick. That was probably a horrible explanation of that tale. Anyways, I'm just gonna make a server.js file in here. The other thing I'm going to need is we're going to need to initialize a Git repo in here. So this is going to be my project folder. I'm going to do... So a lot of this is going to be a repeat from last time, and then we're going to try to take it a little bit further. So we're going to do git bash here. So if I right-click git bash here, and we have to do a git init dot to create a new Git repo. And then we'll do a git status just to check out what things are looking like. And we see server.js. We're going to do a git add dot, which is going to add everything in the current directory, and it's going to do it recursively, so that will include subfolders and subfiles. I'm going to clear the screen, do a git status. I see that my server.js has been added. We still need to commit it. So in version control, git add is kind of like taking a box and putting stuff in it, right? And then git commit here, git commit is like taking that box and then putting duct tape around it, right? You're committing to whatever you have put in that box. So git commit -m for message, and we'll just say, I'm just going to say first commit. You don't have to write your commit message like this. You could just write it like a normal person, like first commit. Maybe I'll do it like this, like a normal person, and try not to be too weird since you're trying to follow along. Hit enter. And now if we do a git status, we have nothing to commit. So even though that stuff that we put in that box and we wrapped it up and we put duct tape around that box to commit it, it still isn't up on the internet anywhere, and we need to have a place to put it, because right now if we do git remote -v, we have nothing because we don't have any remotes. We don't have a Git repo yet, so we need to do that. So I'm gonna by the way, my chat window is still open if you have well, I guess technically you're having internet trouble, so you might not be hearing this, but if you can hear this, the chat window is still open, so I'll be able to see your messages if you have questions while I'm doing this. So anyways, we're going to go to github.com. And I'm just going to go to my profile. Actually, not my profile. I'm going to go to my repositories. And from here, we should have a new button for creating a new project or a new repository. My bad. So from here, I don't remember what I called the other one. I know if I was smart about it, then I would have named it exactly what the so if we look at, I got some other things open. Heroku. So if I was smart about the way I named my project, then it's probably named like Njs Practice _01. So I want to check for that really quick. So I'm going to take this right here, part of my URL. Well, part of my file path. I'm going to check really quick to see if that exists. So www.github.com, and I'm just going to click on one of my projects really quick. Then I'm going to just paste this and then a 01, because I think that's how I would have named it. Okay, So I found the previous project. A good lesson here is it's better to have consistent habits than a good memory, because you're going to write so much code, you're never going to remember what it all does. But if you have very consistent habits about how you do things, you'll be able to figure things out without memorizing them. So I did not remember that this was the name of the last project. I just knew that I used some consistent naming convention, which is this project name closely matches the folder structure here, right? It's just this and then an underscore and then the number that I was doing. So we're going to do the same exact naming convention for consistency. So we're going to take that and we're just going to put an O2 at the end of there. And live streaming okay. So I'll just make a note of like, why I'm doing this. Some description that's gonna jog my memory for if I ever go back to this. I'm gonna make this public. I usually make a lot of my stuff private, but since you might want to take a look at this later, I'm gonna keep it public. And we're going to ignore all of this. We don't want to check any of these boxes because we want this repository to be completely empty, because we already have some code that we want to push up to this project we're allocating space for. So I'm going to create the repository. And I'm going to take this. This is probably the most important part right here. Like everything else, you could ignore, but we definitely need to make a note of this. I'm going to put this in my notes. So I have a notes file. I'm just going to, let's see, Njs Practice 02 get URL. Okay, so I put that in my notes. And now we're going to go back to our terminal. But I'm going to close it just so we can get used to, knowing where we are. So here's the project on the hard drive right now, right? So it's in my Node.js practice folder, and then it's the folder number 2, because it's my second practice session. And this is the file we just created. It's empty, and here's the Git repo we just created. I'm going to do git bash here to open up that terminal again. Every time you do a git bash, it's a good habit just to do a status, make sure nothing weird is going on. Everything looks good there. I'm going to do git remote add, and then I'm going to do GitHub in all capitals, and then within quotes. So I'm going to type a quote character, and that URL from GitHub is still on my clipboard. So this URL is still on my clipboard. I'm going to right click and hit paste. Then I'm going to close off the quote, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now we didn't see anything, but no news is usually good news in the Linux world. So if we go git status, or not git status, my bad, git remote -v, we're going to see the GitHub remote. So this is an alias. So instead of having to type out all of this, when we want to push to this, we can just type this. So that's going to save us a lot of typing. It also helps us, remember what it's for. So git push, GitHub, like that. And we're also going to have to include the branch name. So we're going to push to the master branch. Okay. So now if we go back to GitHub, so here's this page. If we refresh this page now on GitHub, you see that it's changed, right? Because now that we've made our first commit, it's just listing the files that are in that project folder. So right now we just have server.js, which is completely empty. So the next part is allocating space on Heroku, right? So I believe I'm already logged into Heroku, so I don't need to do that. I forgot what the command for figuring out who you are, so let me just see if I can find that really quick. Okay, so I think I found it. I'm just making some notes. Okay, yeah, so it's Heroku, who am I? So I'm just gonna go Heroku, who am I? Because I actually have 2 Heroku accounts. If you only have 1 Heroku account, this probably does not matter. Okay, so I see that right now I am J4M4I5M7 at hotmail.com. So I think that is my main account. So that's good. And that's because when we do Heroku apps create, when we do this command right here, that command will be, and this command here is going to affect your account. So if you're not logged in as who you think you are, then it's going to add your new project on a different account. So it's important to know, like, if you have more than 1 Heroku account, it's good to do a Heroku who am I to make sure that you are currently associated with the account you think you're associated with. So anyways, we're going to do Heroku apps create, and we're going to do Njs. Oh, you know what? I think I already allocated this. So we would do something like Heroku apps create and do Njs Practice 02 like that. But I believe I already allocated that, and that might actually be... I did that on the old... Oh boy, so let's see if we can see what our apps are. So I'm just going to do Heroku apps and see what is here. Okay, so I got a lot of stuff, and I did that... I did the Node.js practice on my other account because I am looking at my list of apps. I just did Heroku apps, and I see all the apps that are associated with this email address, or in other words, the account. And yeah, I don't see the names that I pre-reserved last time. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know, I think I could do like Heroku... can I do Heroku logout? I don't know if I can do that or not, but we're just gonna... Okay, yeah, so Heroku logout, and then I'm gonna Heroku login. And this time I'm gonna log in as my other account. So press any key to open up the browser to log in, or Q to exit. So I'm gonna hit Q to exit really quick, because I want to make sure that I'm logged in as HeavyMetalCookies. So I'm just going to go to Heroku.com. And you won't have to deal with this if... Hold on, let me make sure that my... Is this... Oh boy, okay, so this is not the... So I just realized that my screen is not snapped to the... Yeah, that's bad. Let me fix this. This needs to be moved down. Okay, that's my entire screen. I thought it looked kind of weird, but... Okay. I'm going to move this over, make sure... Okay, that looks good. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully you didn't miss anything super important. I tried to keep everything in the middle of the screen. So here I can see that this is my J4M4I5M7 account, just because I can see these apps and they look like what was in the console earlier up here. So I need to log out of here in the web, so I'm just going to do sign out. And you know what? I actually didn't have to do that. What I really wanted to do was Heroku login-I. So instead of logging in and out on the browser, what I could do is the -I flag, and if I hit this, now it'll allow me to provide the information. Okay, so that's much better. So for the email, I'm going to supply HeavyMetalCookies at gmail.com, and I'm going to do this off after I hit enter. It's probably going to ask me for the password, and it does not it doesn't hide the password, so I'm going to move this off screen really quick. And I'm also gonna make absolutely sure that my broadcast isn't, I'm just going to put this here for now just to make absolutely sure my broadcast is not showing my password. And let's see, what, so password, yes?
I'm leaving.
Okay.
I'm gonna kiss you.
Right. See you around.
Kiss your face.
Okay.
Give me first.
Okay. Okay.
You're
Okay.
not giving your face. There's the
see you around.
face.
Okay.
I'll be home late.
Okay.
Getting my bedroom. I will see you.
Okay, so I gotta clear the screen now because I'm logged in, but it still has some of my information. In fact, I'm just gonna close this terminal. So you'll probably have to hit Control C to get out of there, and then I'm just gonna close the terminal now because I want to make sure that my password isn't in the buffer, the memory buffer. And I'll show you what I mean by that really quick. So if we go back here and we do git bash here, we see, let's say if I do, and let's see, we do Heroku, who am I? Okay, so if you hit up, you can see like your previous commands. Oh, that was from earlier, so I guess it didn't erase. But I guess it erased. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be here in this little buffer of things previously typed. It looks like Heroku is smart enough not to do that, but okay. So Heroku, who am I? Now I'm the correct account. I'm going to do Heroku apps to see what apps I have associated with this account. And I see I have Njs Practice 02 already reserved, so that's the one we're going to use. Now, I forgot how to get information on this account from the command line. So I guess we are going to use Heroku to find that information because we need to figure out how to push up to the Heroku remote. So we'll go to Heroku. And I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna log in. Okay. Okay, so after logging in, we want to take a look at this Njs Practice 02 right here. And inside of, I believe it's going to be settings. It might be access. Okay, no, it's in settings. We see this Heroku Git URL down here. Right here. We're going to take all this and we're going to copy that. And we're going to use that within our project, within Git here, to set up a new remote. So I'm going to clear, do git status, just for good measure. Make sure nothing weird is going on. And then git remote add, and I'm going to say Heroku in all capitals. You don't have to do all capitals, that's just the way I do it. Open up a quote mark, right click, paste to paste that URL, close quote mark, and then hit enter. Okay, git status. Okay, and git remote -v. Okay, so now we see we have GitHub and we have Heroku. So right now we don't have a proper project set up, so pushing to Heroku would just result in a failure. But why don't we just do it anyways to show you what happens, right? So git push Heroku and the master branch. So Heroku is going to respond in a not so positive way and reject our push. So it says remote rejected right here, and the reason is because it doesn't know what kind of project it is, because we don't have a correct project structure for Heroku to be able to identify it. So let's see. No default language could be detected for this app. Hint, this occurs when Heroku cannot detect the build pack to use for this application automatically. So build packs are like a series of instructions that Heroku uses to deploy your project after you've pushed your project up to their servers. And those build packs have certain rules for how they identify what type of project is in your Git repo. And right now, we don't have enough stuff for the build pack to properly identify our Node.js project. So we'll fix that. First thing we need to do is touch package.js, or not package.js, sorry, package.json. And then we're going to echo just an empty JSON object into package.json. And all right, and okay, hold on. I just got your message, so I'm gonna and let's see. I'm gonna make sure. Yeah, I am recording. Just making sure. So I sent a message on the Twitch chat. So I don't know if you can see that. And let's see. Where was I? Let's do cat package.json to see the contents of package.json. And we see just this empty JSON object. Let's get out of the terminal and just inspect in the actual project structure here. So I'm going to open this with my Notepad++, and I'm going to save some stuff and move this over here. Close that one. Okay, so I opened it up, and I see this package.json here. And actually, maybe if I can split screen this, that might be kind of nice. So let me say move this over here on this side, and then my folder, I'm going to keep it like that. And that's kind of nice. Oh, and my column limit is right there. So that's good. This empty space shouldn't matter. I'm going to keep it here because I'm pretty sure it shouldn't matter. I'm going to put more. So empty spaces should not matter, and I want to make sure that I am correct about that. So I'm just put some more empty spaces so we can see if I am indeed correct about that. But yeah, with a server.js and an empty package.json, that should be all we need to get going. Now, because server.js right now is empty, so open this with... Because server.js is empty, I believe what's going to happen is it's going to successfully deploy, but then when we go to the website, you're going to see it crash immediately because there's no code. So, but let's give that a shot and just see what happens, right? So, we're going to git add dot, git status. We see that package.json is added. Git commit dash a, actually m. So A is for all and M is for message, and you can combine them like this, AM. But we already did our git add, so we don't need to do a dash A. We just need an M for message. Second commit. And git push. We're going to try git push Heroku. And Heroku is all capital because it's the name of our remote, and I named it all capitals. Oh, and so the last time I did this, we just did, we can do this, or we can type what they typed up there, and then the default branch will always be master, and we'll have less to type. I already did it this way in the last tutorial, so let's type what they're doing up there. Git push set upstream Heroku and master. So the next time I do git push Heroku, I won't have to specify the branch. It'll just assume that master is the default branch. Okay, so no problems there, and it gave us a little URL here. Or, that's not the URL. Hold on. That's the Git URL. Where is my... Oh, here it is. So here's the website URL. So I'm going to copy that. And we'll go over here, and we don't really need this. Let's close some of these other things. I don't like to have too many tabs open. But you see application error. So even though we successfully deployed to Heroku, we immediately ran into a runtime error when we tried to go to the site. And that's pretty reasonable because there is absolutely nothing in our server.js. So how would you expect anything to work if there's nothing in server.js, right? So let's get something in server.js, right? So I know we need HTTP. So const HTTP equals require. And remember that require is like an include or an import or a using statement, depending on what language you're familiar with. And we'll just do HTTP. And then HTTP.create server. And create server, it takes one parameter, and that one parameter is a function that takes a server request and a server response. So a server request and server response. It doesn't matter how you write these. So a lot of times people write it as just request and response like that. Now the problem with that is res is also going to be a variable name when we do database queries, and I want to distinguish between if it's a response from the server and when it's a response from a database query. So I'm going to be a little bit more long-handed with our variable namings, but since a lot of people are used to seeing code like this, request and response, I want people who are familiar with code written this way to still be able to understand what's going on. So if we do this, then people who are familiar with just request and response will be able to understand that. People who have never done this type of programming before are going to have a little bit more information, and server request and server response is going to be a lot more informative than just request and response if you are new to this type of thing. And this is also the way I like to write it. Server request, server response. Okay, so here is the body of our function. You don't have to write that comma. I'm going to delete it soon anyways. And after we've passed the function as a parameter, this parenthesis right here is closing off the function call to create server. And now last time I did something like this, like listen, and then process.env.port. And that's totally valid. And it's nice and concise. And the only reason you can do it this way with the listen like this, hold on. Okay, so the only reason you do it like this is because this function is returning the server. So the create server function returns the server, and then you can use the listen method on that server object. You have to design the function so that you can chain things together. If this function were not designed for chaining, then you wouldn't be able to just do .listen here at the end like that. Another way you could do it, instead of like this, if you didn't want to chain together your calls, we could move listen over here, and we could close this off. And don't mind the double. You can just do this. I just have a habit of using two when the statement is broken over multiple lines. If you don't want to be weird, just do that, 1 semicolon, or because it's JavaScript, you usually can get away with ignoring semicolons altogether. But I just do this. It's kind of weird, but it's just two of them lets me know that this code here, this statement that's being ended, started somewhere on a different line. And I use 1 semicolon when the statement began on the same line. That's just a weird convention I use that helps me code. You might not want to do that if you want your code to look more normal. You might just want to stick to just 1 semicolon rather than being weird like me. Okay, so what we could do here is we could say var server, and then I'm running out of room here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this apart a little bit, and I don't really think I need this extra level of indentation. I don't think it's because most of the code is going to go like in this section here, and I don't think I'm getting much valuable about this, so I'm going to break the indentation rules a little bit. So this is kind of ugly looking, but I want to make sure I don't go past my column limit so you can see everything on the screen. But now that we have this server object, we can go like this, right? We can do server.listen, and this code is the same as this kind of code. So if we took out server, right, so this, and here, let me do both versions really quick so you can see the difference. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste this really quick. That was on line 5, so I'm going to indent down to line 5 really quick. And we're going to do var server, and then server.listen. So this right here is the same. So this right here and this right here. And so the difference is that this has this server variable, and the functions are not chained together. So here's where server is, here is where listen is. Actually, let me use a different color. So here's server, and nope, hold on. Okay, so here's where server is, here's where listen is, and if we look here, there is no server object, there's just the listen, right? Because create server returns that server object, and we're just chaining on the listen command to that return server object without having to put it into a variable. So this is very nice and compact and concise. However, honestly, I think I would do whatever is more readable, and this is more readable, having this server object. It's, you know, not as concise, right, because, oh, look, we used an extra line of code and we had to, like, you know, do this much extra typing, right? But the thing is, code is going to be read a lot more than it's going to be written, so you really should do the extra typing that's going to make somebody who is reading the code be able to understand it. Because you're always going to know what the code does while you're writing it, but it's when you come back to it like months later where you're going to be confused. So before we have a full working server, though, we need to do one more thing, which is server response dot write, and I'm just going to say hello, and then server response dot end to end the response. This just lets the client know that the server is done talking to it. This is ending the conversation. The server is basically saying goodbye, and this is the server just saying something to the client. So let's take that, and that should be all we need to get something up and running. So going back to Git Bash, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close this as well, and in Notepad++, I'm just going to show you how I do this. Server.js, I'm going to right-click here, and we have full file path to clipboard, and then we have open containing folder in Explorer. This is the one I want to use. So I'm going to click this, and it's just going to open that Explorer window. Now to get it to dock to the right, on a Windows machine, you hold the Windows key and you just hit the right arrow, and then you get it docked, right? So right, left, right, left, right, left. And this is all while I have the Windows key held down. So if I have the Windows key held down, I can just easily rearrange my windows. Unfortunately, it doesn't do top and bottom. Like, so you hit the top, it just maximizes like that. So top key, bottom key will minimize it. So like that. So these are the top and bottom keys, and the right and left keys kind of do this. So from here, now that I've opened up the folder that this code is in, I'm going to right-click and do git bash here to open up my prompt, and do git add dot git status. I probably should have done a git status first, but I was confident that I didn't do anything weird. Git commit with message. It's the third commit. I'm going to lose track of how many commits it is. These are horrible commit messages, by the way, but I don't care. So git commit, and then git push Heroku. Okay, so drink some coffee while you're waiting for that. So there are other ways to do this. You could use a local server. You could use, you could install Node locally, and not have to do what I'm doing here, like always deploying live. I just like always deploying live because it's not too much time to wait, and then you only have to keep track of one build. But for like a serious large-scale project, you're probably going to want to have some type of local environment on your computer, and then like a live environment that's deployed to the server. Because if we wrote some code right now and that code crashes the server, if it's a big website that everybody's using, that's going to be bad news. And I've done horrible things before. I once was like, oh, I only changed one line of code, and I pushed it up to a live server, and then I crashed all the cash registers in the United States for a certain company. It was only down for a minute because I realized what I had done, and I was like, oh god. But yeah, don't be a cowboy, I guess is what I'm saying. So if we go back here to this URL where our app is at, and it said application error, we're going to hit enter. And, oh, did I still screw something up? So let's take a look. So we screwed something up. Actually, I screwed something up, but let's do Heroku logs -- tail. And we want to see what kind of last happened on the server. And okay, var server http.createServer is not a function. Okay, so it wasn't create server, was it something else? So I'm gonna go into my notes here. Let's see, http create server. Or in this case, you know, I'm just going to cheat. So I'm going to Control C. I think I did this last time, didn't I? I'm going to close the terminal. And let's go to GitHub really quick. So remember how we just added the server.js and the package.json and all that stuff? Let's look at Njs Practice 02. So see how we just have server.js and there's no package.json and it says first commit, but we're on our third commit. But hey, didn't we just like push up there? So like what's going on with this? Well, that's because we have two places where we can put our code. Git is distributed version control, and we only push to Heroku. So let's fix that right now for a second. So You don't have to constantly push to both places, though. So if we do git remote-v, we see we have GitHub and we have Heroku. Let's do a git push GitHub. Now, when you push to GitHub, that's not going to change what's on your website because your website depends on whatever is pushed up to Heroku. But it's good to have a backup in two places. So let's say you accidentally delete your Heroku project. If you don't have another copy somewhere, you're in trouble. So I always like to keep a copy on GitHub. That way, if I ever accidentally nuke this project, or maybe I lose access to Heroku for some reason, I'll always have the original project somewhere. But anyways, now that I've pushed to GitHub this time, I'm going to close this. And if we refresh this, this first commit is going to... I didn't mean to click that. So, refresh. And now we see package.json and we see the server.js. So that's good. I want to take a look at the previous practice because we did get a working server in the previous practice. And... or I thought we did. Why do we only have a readme.txt here? What the heck? You know what? I may have only pushed up that old project to Heroku as well when we did the last tutorial. So I'm going to fix that as well. So I'm going to go into the first tutorial really quick. Do a git bash here. And I should have the same remotes. So git push GitHub. Git push GitHub master. So I haven't done this setup to make it always deploy to the master branch or push to the master branch, so I had to specify master here. Okay, let's close this. Let's refresh this, and now we should see all those other files. Okay, cool. So now I can go to server.js here and see what did I do wrong. Oh, okay, I see what I did wrong. So if it's JavaScript or Node.js code, then function names are going to start with lowercase variables. I think that might be C# that does capital letters for the function names. But if it's Node.js code or JavaScript code, the first letter of a function is lowercase. So this is camel case, and then if it's a capital like that, technically this right here on line 4 is what's known as title case, because you capitalized it and you capitalized titles, so you know that's kind of where it comes from. But yeah, so this is title case on line 4, this is camel case on line 6. So we want camel case for our function names, which I usually remember to do that properly. Also, you know, you could probably use other editors that have IntelliSense or whatnot. I just like to read the documentation and try to do things by just knowing what they are in my head. But it'd be good to use like an IDE like Visual Studio or Atom. Those are all... Atom is pretty lightweight. Visual Studio is really heavy. You could also use Visual Studio Code. I hear good things about that, and it's a lot more lightweight than the full-fledged Visual Studio. Okay, so now that we have made that fix to our code, we're going to do git bash here, and we're just going to do git. So I know everything I want to do. Let's just do a git status really quick. So I just want to do this. I want to do git add dot, and then I want to do git commit dash M for message, and I really don't care what the message is, but I'll try to do something useful. Typo fix, and git push Heroku master. So you notice I typed everything out on one line like this. That's just because I wanted to save some time. So the way this works is this is going to run, and if this command runs successfully, then the next thing that will run will be this. And so the double ampersands is what's going to make that possible. And then if this command runs successfully without an error, then we will also do this. So it's this and this, and this, like so. And let me check my messages. Okay. So anyways, let's just hit enter and see if I typed all that right. Yep, I did. And after we wait for that to deploy, we'll just check out the URL, see if that is actually working. Okay, so that works. Let's close this. Let's go back to our application. Let's refresh. And we can see hello world right here. So the next step is obviously, well, not obviously, but I think it would probably be good to show like an HTML file, right? So for that, what I think would be a good next step is we have to think about project structure. And I'm going to create a folder called static, and that's going to be for static content, meaning that there's no like that in order to create the content, we're not like pre-processing the content. It's whatever is in there is just going to be served as is. And then I'm going to show you how to serve a file from the static folder, and then I'll show you how to like expose the entire static folder to serve anything that is in there. But first, we'll just go with, you know, one thing at a time. So let's do new folder, and we'll call it static. I'm just going to do all capitals. Reminders. Okay. That's just a reminder on my machine. Don't worry about that. So in static, we'll do a new... let's keep it simple. Let's keep it really simple. Let's do hello.txt. So we'll keep it as a text file right now. And maybe you want to copy, paste that, right? Just to have some type of content, right? Okay, maybe make a little note, right? So just put something in there, right? Just so that we can test if we're going to get that data back. So now we want to serve that file. So how are we going to do that in here? So quickest way is... Actually, before we do that, let's do if... Hold on. Let's do... const request let's do I'm gonna call it cap URL for cap URL, but all capital, or maybe URL caps, like that, equals server request.url dot to uppercase, like that. And you don't really have to write it like that. You could just remove that, right? But I sometimes add more parentheses than are needed, and I don't know if that'll bother you, but that's just the way I do it. So we have this capitalized URL, and that's so that if somebody types a mixed case, for URLs really shouldn't be case sensitive as far as I'm concerned, so I'm just going to make it uppercase. And then we'll compare everything against uppercase. So let's do if URL cap equals / and just nothing. So if we're at the root of the site, I'm going to take this right here, I'm going to paste that there, and I'm just going to say site root, and then else, if URL cap equals okay, if URL cap equals that, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we'll paste it, and we'll just say to do hello.txt. So this is a to-do message. We need to do this, but first we just want to stub in the basic logic of, when we go here, we want to serve that hello.txt file. I'm going to copy this one more time, copy paste, and I'm just going to write this bad route, and then we're going to end the response. So we have 3 branches, right? The site root right here, the file we want to get, and then if it wasn't either of those, we're just going to say that there was a bad route. So this is like a very simple routing. So if we want to, we could just say dead simple routing. So sometimes I like to make little sections in my code to know what is all this code for. And I also like to mark the bottom and top. So here's the top and here's the bottom. So and use the exact same phrase so that when I click it, I can see it highlighted at both sides, and I know where a certain piece of logic begins and ends. Other people might want to do it like some people just do it like this, like dead simple routing, like that. The problem with writing it like this is sometimes I'm uncertain about, well, where does dead simple routing, where does that end? And sometimes that can be unclear. So I like to be as clear as possible. And like I said, you only write the code once, but you're going to read it many, many times after that. So I like to be as clear as possible, so there's no ambiguity as to where this dead simple routing section begins and ends. So let's give that a shot, see what happens. So over here, I'm going to go back to the root, git bash here, and we'll do a git status. Okay, we'll do a git add dot to recursively add everything. I'm going to clear the screen, git status again, and we see the static hello.txt, and we also see that server.js was modified. So we'll do git commit -m for message and say this is our 4th commit, right? Eventually I'm going to forget what the commit number is. Actually, no, because there was a typo somewhere. Whatever. I don't really care right now. I guess I should be good about this and have some good habits. So let's describe either what we did or why we did it. I'm just going to say dead simple routing. I think that is good enough for me to like find what's going on. Okay, so clear, git push Heroku. We'll push that up to Heroku, and hopefully hopefully I didn't make any typos or whatever, because yeah, because I didn't lint the code. I just typed it, right? Okay. So let's go back here and let's refresh and see if we... Oh, nice. Site root. So that's good. We probably don't have any syntax errors. So if we do / blah, 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 right? We get bad route. Okay, cool. And then if we do static / hello.txt, we get to-do hello.txt, right? We get our little to-do message. So next thing to do is let's type hello like we're some type of edgy teenager from the early 2000s. So mix our case like this. Okay. And we still get hello.txt, right? So our URLs are not case sensitive, and that is by design. Some people will tell you, well, technically URLs should be case sensitive, but that's not how the real world works. That's not how anybody thinks URLs should work, right? If you tell somebody to go to www.whatever.com and they spell, whatever with a lowercase w or a capital W, shouldn't matter. It should get them to where they're going, right? So that's all in place, and we've kind of like made a little scaffolding for what we want to do. So let's finish that thought now, right? We want to serve this file in here, and how are we going to do that? So, well, we need some type of logic in here that's going to serve the hello.txt. So really quick, what I can do is I can make a, let's see, we need to include fs for file stream. So const fs, actually let's do fs equals require fs, I don't know. Okay, so fs is for file stream, and we'll do fs.readFile. And readFile takes air and data as a callback. And I am missing something. I'll get to it. This is actually the second parameter of readFile. The first parameter is, the file you want to read, right? So the file we want to read is /static/hello.txt. That is the file we want to read. And this is the callback function. And you'll notice that it's air and then data, not data then air. And that kind of confused me the first time. And I gave it a thought as how to remember it's air first and then data first. And my thought is, by making air the first parameter, you cannot write a function that does not acknowledge the existence of an air object. So what I mean by that is, because JavaScript is very loosey-goosey about how it does things, we could give it a callback like this, but then we'd only be able to work with the air. We wouldn't be able to work with the data. If we want to get at the second parameter, we have to type out the second parameter. But there's no way to do something like this. There's no way to say, oh, just, ignore this and just look at this. So we always have to acknowledge this. We always have to acknowledge the air parameter because data is the second parameter. And so in order to get data, we also have to say air, right? We could just get the air, right? We could pretend that data doesn't exist and get air and just use one parameter. But we can't do the opposite. We can't do this, right? Because this is still air because the parameters are order-based. So the first parameter is always the air. Second parameter is data. And I think they do that so that if you want to get the data, you have to acknowledge that an air object also exists. I think that's why they do it in this order. I thought it was kind of weird to have the data come after the air object. Maybe I'm just OCD. I don't know. But anyway, so now that we're in here, we do if air. So if air object exists, we'll do one thing. Else, if not air. And then we could also do like another else like that. So I like to keep the shorter piece of logic at the top, so it's less likely that we're going to miss it. And really, we just need like this code right here. We'll just cut paste that, and we'll just say we'll just say ERR for air, right? Plus, we could do air dot toString like that, and just to give us a little notification that an error happened, and then print off what the error message is, and then end of the server response. Otherwise, if you know what, I'm gonna actually put this. I'm going to put the server response ending. I'm going to put that right at the bottom here so I don't forget about it. And Then I have less to write in here. So if there's not an error, we're going to do server response.write, and we can just write that file contents like this. JavaScript should be flexible enough to just let us do that without a problem. It's not the most proper way to do it. We can do something more proper later. Server.response.write. I'm just going to write something like okay, so what I did here is, you might think that it's weird that I did air and then not air and then else. The thing is, well, first of all, JavaScript can be kind of weird. Also, if the body of here gets really big and the body of here gets really big, we might need reminders of what's going on. So air and not air is much more explicit than air and then else. So that's kind of why I've written it this way. And then this line of code should never, ever execute, right? It's because we have air and we have not air, right? So that covers it all, right? But maybe later, while someone's editing the code, they accidentally do something like this. And now this code executes, because if there's an error, this gets executed. If there's not an error, well, this gets ignored, and we go all the way to the else, and then we see this line should never execute. So this is going to indicate that there is programming logic error, right? It's not about, if this gets shown, it's not because there's an error in the data, it's because we coded something wrong. That's just a defensive programming habit I use a lot. Some people may not like it because it overly clutters the code, but that's the way I like to write it. Okay, so if there's an error, we're going to print out the error string. If there's actual data from reading the file, then we're going to write that data. And those are really the only two things. And then we got to make sure that no matter what, we're going to end the server response. Otherwise, the server will hang, and that will be bad news. So let's give that a shot, and hopefully I didn't screw anything up. So clear the screen, git status, git add dot, git commit -am. No, we just need m. I'm going to do read file. It's kind of like what we're on, the work we're on, and then git push Heroku. And if that all works properly, like I expect this to not be rejected, but I can't be certain that I didn't make any typos or mistakes in the code that I wrote. So we're about to see if I screwed anything up. Okay, so let's refresh. Okay, so we do have an error, and it says no such file or directory. /static/hello.txt. And that's kind of weird because I swear we had such a directory. So static hello.txt, right? So the first thought is we don't need the /, but that seems kind of weird. Hello.txt. Huh. So let's try this. I'm going to close this. And in our project here, right here, we're going to do a git bash here. And we're going to SSH into the project on the server and see kind of like, what does the server see? Does that file actually exist there? I'm pretty sure it does, but let's make sure. So Heroku PS exec like that. I think it's PS. I don't really know what PS stands for. I should really look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's PS. Okay, yes, I'll restart. Starting the dynos. And so what we're going to do is, right, when we deploy our project by pushing up the Git repo to Heroku, it basically creates a copy of our project on a virtual machine that's up on Heroku. And so I've just gotten into the virtual machine, and I want to take a look around and see what's going on. So first thing is ls, get our bearings, and I see static package.lock.json, package.json, server.js. So you'll notice package lock.json, it's like, where did that come from, right? Well, that's because the Heroku server probably ran the command npm init on our project, and that's where that package.lock is coming from. But hey, I see the static folder, so let's go cd static to get into that folder. Let's do ls. So I do see hello.txt on the server. Okay. Let's clear the screen for a second. Let's do cat hello.txt. Just to see the contents. Okay, so we see the contents. And yeah, that's the stuff I typed, right? John Mark was here, etc., right? So if we go over to, let's open that up, hello.txt. So this is hello.txt. And on our server, we can definitely see hello.txt is there. So the question is, okay, well, if that's there, then what's wrong with the code? Why is it saying that that does not exist? And my first thought is this leading forward slash, it doesn't like that. That's my first thought. Now, in order to make sure that's the case, I might as well reference some old code and kind of see, well, what does my other code that has a router in it do? So I'm going to go to GitHub again and just reference some old code and just see, well, what does working code do? This code is a bit complicated. I don't know if it's the best. Yeah, that's probably not going to be the best. Let's Heroku. I don't know. Let's just try this one. This one might be okay. And just go. Okay, PO office path of file. I wrote this code in a very confusing style, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we have like a test function, it looks like. Oh, can I just click that? That's nice. Okay, table of actions. That's what I get for writing things in a really confusing way. Sometimes you don't know how confusing your code is until you come back to it like a lot later. But this is way too. It's not way too clever. It just has too much indirection in it. Because I just want to be able to quickly see like an example file being served, and I can't. So also that's why sometimes if you do something in a really clever way, it might be good to keep a more simple way of doing it in your code base as well. So you know, like let's say I do something really clever like this, like having this weird lookup table for how we're going to route things, still keeping something simple, like, you know, if the URL is / go to the site root, like keeping that and then doing the more complicated routing later, so that you have a hybrid, simple way of understanding things and the more complicated stuff later. That can help you get your bearings into the code a little bit faster. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Create server. So this is the main routing function of this server. Okay, so if we do /k in the route, it's going to take this path dot /server.js, and it's going to serve it as text/plain. I just remember this from my code. Okay, so I already see what I did wrong. So let's go back here. So this path right here, the fix is here, dot for current directory, then /static/hello.txt. So that's all we need. We just need a dot. So I forget that sometimes. So let's see if I'm full of shit or not. So let's Control C, yes to get out of here, clear, get status, and we just modified server.js with that one line, with that one little dot. Git add dot git commit -am dot slash not. Ooh, this is... Slashes are going to do weird... Well, actually, it's a /, so probably not. But slashes can do weird things. Okay, so git push Heroku. Okay, so let's see if I was correct about that. I'm pretty sure I am. So let's see. Waiting for that. Okay, so let's refresh. Let's see what happened. Bad route. Well, it's not what I expected. So let's do this for a second. So site route, yeah, that's what we expected. And did I... God damn it. I wasn't paying attention. This is the URL. The URL does not need a dot. It's the file path that we're reading that needs a dot. So, to make it less likely that I'm going to screw things up in the future, what I'm going to do is, well, that could just make it harder to read because there's more indirection. Here, we're going to put a dot here, plus like that. And the reason we're going to write it that way is just to make it, I want to make it absolutely obvious that there is a dot before this, so that when you look at this path, so first of all, you can see both paths, right? And then you can just see that there's a dot post fixed to it. If we wrote it like this, and we put a dot here like this, then if I tried to highlight matching tokens, Control 1, I don't see the matching token, right? Now, if we did it from here, and we omitted the dot because we're smart or whatever, then yeah, we see both. But it's not as apparent that there's this little dot here that's making a big difference. So we want that dot to stand out a little bit more, and that's why we're going to put it in its own string and kind of add it like that. And it's much more obnoxious, so it's kind of there being like, hey, notice me, right? And that way, when you do this, you see both of the spaces where that's being used, and you can be like, what is this junk before it, right? It's much more noticeable. And that's going to help because we want this to be noticeable. This dot right here. Ooh, boy. So let's go over here. Let's find some of the previous commits, or maybe not. You know what? Just, whatever. Git add dot and git commit -m dot in wrong place and git push Heroku like that. Okay, let's see what happens. So it's not bad to screw up. Getting things right is learning. Getting things wrong is learning as well. So knowing what not to do is just as good as knowing what to do. They're both valid ways to learn. So let's refresh and see what we got. So I expect this still to be the same. And if we do /static/hello.txt, let's see what we got. Oh, nice. We got that file. So we have actual file contents. And let's try changing the case. So let's do hello and a lowercase o like that. And let's try a lowercase t, xt like that. So we just changed the case. And even though we changed the case, we still have the same file being served. So let's change that to lowercase a, still same file. So the next step is to serve something more meaningful than just plain text, right? We want to serve like HTML page, right? HTML page, preferably with some JavaScript. And that's the next thing we should get into. But right now, I'm going to say that this is a good stopping point for showing, what the next step is, I guess. And the idea is to incrementally build up, right? So add a little feature, add a little feature, add a little feature, and just go from there. And if you kind of grow your code base like that, then, it'll grow kind of like a tree, right? Like, trees get gigantic, right? But they grow very slowly. People might not want to hear something like that, but it's, doing something slow and steady and getting it working and making it robust. Like, I think that's a good way to go. But yeah, anyways, I think I'm done here for now. And then the next time we do this, we'll set up everything we need, and we won't go into as much depth for how we got to here, because I'm gonna try to work up from a completely new project and get to here, and then take it even further than here. We'll serve like an HTML file next time. So that's it for now. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. And yeah, all right, bye.